though.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Yes, wow. I wish I could get rid of that bloody wow thing. I don't know why it's happening, but thank you so much for turning up. And there's lots already in the chat, so that's lovely to hear. Thank you, and see as well. So hello, everyone. Pauline's in there. Stephen Bramwell's in there. Hello, Trevor Powell. Leanne. Sean Irish Terrier. God, Amelia. Hello, Amelia. Nice of you to join us there. Audrey's in. Audrey was the second one into the chat today there as well. So Bill's Countryside Adventures was the first one. Bill, little bit, as you know, a little bit of housekeeping. Discord, please pop over there. Come, it is now its own thing. It runs itself, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. So we'd love to see you in there. And yes, he's still there looking so forlorn at his sweet corn, and that'll be all gone, I guess. There now, there, Steve. And Potty Mouth, please sign up, subscribe to that. And if you don't mind, the very final one, the podcast. The podcast is growing. So this kind of show lasts around about, an hour. And if you just want to listen to the audio, it's this is how I listen to it. And like I say, just in the car, taking the dog for a walk, I listen to that as well. So yes. So welcome to the Potty Mouth Garden Club. Yes, so hello, and there we are. Hello, everyone. Yes, we have. Yes, Steve, Audrey, and Jess. Lovely to have you on, Jessie. Thank you so much again for coming on. Our special guest. That's the way I like to think of Jess, our special guest. How are you doing, Jess? Are you all right?
Good. Yeah.
Good. Yes. How's garden? Things going all right in the garden?
Yeah, I haven't been up to the allotment for like 5 days, so it could be a catastrophe, and I wouldn't know about it.
So you still haven't been up, like now? You still haven't been up yet, because we've been talking about
No.
Oh, right,
got back like last night and haven't been up there. Mum's been up there, obviously, but I haven't been up there. She hasn't told me anything.
It's really quite nice that when you haven't been, and then you go back and you can see things growing, and you can see like development. You think, wow, do you know what I mean? If I leave it alone, things are all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, Jess, it's lovely to have you on. Thank you so much. The old boy. Yeah, look at the old fella there, Stephen. Now, I think, Stephen, someone mentioned that you were rocking and rolling on your chair last week. So we're just going to try and keep Stephen calm and he's going to stay there and not move.
You've got no chance.
Are you well?
Absolutely no chance.
Are you well, sir?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I've been a fidget since birth. I can't stop.
I know.
I'm doing very well right now, but that's only because I'm blinded by this new light I've got.
I know, it's funny how we've all got lights here now, and you just you look at them and you think, oh, you can't see a bloody thing. So, but it's Stephen's nice. How's the garden going? The allotment going good?
It's going okay. I've got a lovely harvest out of there just yesterday, I think. Brilliant harvest. Yes. Well pleased with that. Things are ticking over, and I'm getting on with a few other jobs at the same time. So,
we'll come back and we'll have a little chat as well. Now, Audrey. Hello, Audrey. How are you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you back on. How are you doing? Now, Audrey, last week, I think you were in the chat screaming at her about tomato seeds.
Yes, I was.
So we can't sow green tomatoes. You can't use them seeds. Is that right?
Okay. Can you use the seeds? Perhaps. What is the best to let any kind of fruit, anything get mature? That's you kind of want to mimic what nature does. Mm-hmm. So nature is going to let it get mature and fall off the plant. So that's the best time to get your seeds.
So to be honest, it's something I never even thought about, Audrey. And I was just it kind of came to us, that question, and I was like, I honestly have no idea. Well,
it goes for everything. Mm-hmm. You want to say flower seeds, you wait till they go like bolt where the seeds are mature.
But
right, you don't.
When someone lays it out exactly like that, it makes perfect sense. But when you're kind of just thinking about it by yourself, you think, I wonder if you can. Do you know what I mean? maybe they might germinate, but you might get a poorer plant.
Well, it's kind of like if you save F1's tomato seeds, you're still going to get a tomato plant. You just might not get a duplicate of what you took them from.
Yes.
But you'll still get tomato plants.
Yes. Well, yeah. I'm sorry I missed that with you were trying to tell in the comments there.
Okay, I wanted a corner that I could blow and go, you guys.
Common sense. Wake up. Come on. Now, don't forget as well, if you want a question asked or answered by our esteemed guests, just put a letter Q. I'll do a search there now. Just put a little Q before you. Oh, they're all there. So you write your question with a letter Q before the question, and then I can find them. So we have questions already in. But I want to kick off with, I tell you what, I'll put myself on. I've got a little parcel came through today, and I haven't opened it, but I'm not 100%. It's either elephant garlic or garlic. So I want to just open it out, and I wrote it down. I got King Seeds I bought me garlic from, and I bought elephant garlic from, I think it's Simple Seeds. So now this is the garlic. Stephen, everybody, Jess, what is that? Does that actually, it looks, I'm quite impressed with it, to be honest. They're nice,
decent size bulbs.
Aye, they're right, nice.
Decent size.
I was getting a little bit worried, you know. I bought, let's have a look.
I mean, I've got some. Gosh, you got enough.
Well, you've got to think, Steve. I'll just push on back there. You've got to take 2 of them away for the white rot. So then my gardening incompetence, you've got to take them away, right? And then the birds and everything else. You've just really got that one left there. So,
oh god.
Actually, I'm really quite happy with that. Have you got your garlic in? Have you got it bought, Steve? Oh, you use your own garlic, don't you?
I am doing this year. I'm using, I think I planted I can't remember if it was 4 bulbs or 8 bulbs last year. I'll have to check back. But whatever I do this year, half of the bulbs I plant will be my own and the other half will be bought. And I'm waiting for an order of seed garlic. My own elephant garlic, I grow that. And I'm going to grow a few more this year than I have previously. Normally grow about 30, but I want to knock it up to 40, 45 for this next year.
Well, honestly, you have totally kind of reversed my thought with the elephant garlic. I mentioned this a couple of times, Steve. And now I've kept about 6 or 8 good-sized bulbs, what I think is good-sized bulbs for the garden. But the rest, it's... You know when you say it's a mild taste, it's still got a good garlic taste. It certainly is a lot milder.
Yes.
But, because I was honestly ready just to throw them away and not bother. But then in gravies, in sauces, it just gives it just gives that background heat. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely
it's just another allium flavour that is in your diet. You've got all these things. You've got your garlic, you've got your shallots, you've got your elephant garlic, and you've got your leeks. You've got all these different tastes. I mean, even in onions, you've got 4 or 5 different tastes you could go for, and ways, this one might be good with salads, and this one might be good for cooking or slow cooking. So there's so much in there to explore, and that's what I love about the actual allium plant itself. Just so much variety in there.
Well, I haven't got the actual price there on, but this one was from King Seeds, so...
Jess, you went to the expensive one then.
Well, didn't go? Sorry, Jess, I'll come to you in a second there. The last time from the elephant garlic, I've tried the Isle of Wight garlic, and I just wasn't happy with them at all. Do you know what I mean? The elephant garlic, the centres was just shocking. It was like smaller than garlic, and I thought, you know what? I'm never going back there. So, but Jess, have you got your garlic in? Have you got elephant garlic? No, nothing. No. Do you plant it roundabout now, or?
I'm still undecided whether I'm going to do it. Last year, it was just so. It was actually disgusting what I pulled out of the ground. It was. When something's so bad, you're trying to get it out of the ground. I was retching. It was so rotten.
Oh, right.
With allium leaf myler and white rot and rust that you have having to scoop it out of the ground rather than harvest it.
So
I'm a bit reluctant.
So when was that then, Jess? Was this year or last year, did you see it?
Yeah, that was early this year when I was
Right,
picking it.
right.
It was just and it looked fantastic for so long. It really fooled me. So it was extra heartbreak.
Well, it's funny because I was, for the onion side of it, I was normally have some quite, half of it goes to white rot. But I don't know if it was to do with the heat this year. We've had amazing heat, and I don't know if that kind of had anything to do. But my onion has been amazing. Do you know what I mean? I think 3 or 4 onions were the only ones that got the white rot. So, but I know JB has the trouble with it, Jess. And he's gonna just do it in pots, like container pots, and try and bring in soil and keep it away. So there's that option.
I've got like a big polystyrene trough. That one of those ones you get cold fish in at the market, like a huge thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to that over to garlic this year, but I haven't actually got around to ordering it yet. And somebody told me that definitely go to the Isle of Wight garlic company, and now you're like, nah.
Well, so, I guess, I don't want to kind of certainly disrepute them, but just for me personally, I've tried a couple of times with them, and each time it hasn't worked. Do you know what I mean? And I even showed on video the last one, the elephant garlic. The bulbs were tiny. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't only out to say 12. They're quite expensive. Out, I think 12 cloves, I could only use 6, and I thought, you know what? That's what I mean. This is the first time I've used king seeds, but they seem all right. So
a couple of years ago, I got some elephant garlic from Wilco's actually.
Right.
Quite at the end of the season. It's just in where they do those bargain bags of stuff.
Right.
It was fantastic. I actually got it to grow. It's the only time I ever have. So I was pretty pleased with that. About 20.
There you go. Now, Audrey, I know we talked about garlic, and you've got enough to kind of feed America. You know what I mean? Kind of reserves.
Okay.
What about elephant garlic? Do you grow elephant garlic?
I do. So I've pulled aside the elephant garlic that I'm planting this season, and I'm only planting 200 of regular garlic.
Because if no one, most people know though, Audrey made a mistake with your ordering system, Audrey, and I think you ended up.
Yeah, I didn't have a system. That was the problem.
I think you ended up with a.
Yes, I need more. Yes. So,
but you planted all them, didn't you? So they all came, and you all got a great crop.
Oh, absolutely. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And so if you stop by my home right now, you're going to leave with a bouquet of garlic because there's no way we need that much.
So when do you sow yours then, Audrey?
I will be doing it this week or next week.
Right.
Yeah, I got to get it in.
Have you ever tried, early next year, say March next year? Have you ever tried that?
No, because don't they need to be frozen for a little bit?
Cold? Well, I've just seen a couple of the YouTube gardeners on here. Dan's Allotment Diary. He plants his in March. You know what I mean, and he seems to get a stunning late crop. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I want my garden beds probably.
That's earlier. That's a good point.
I want them coming out end of June, July. So I still have
24th of June. It's written in where I'll pull mine.
You don't wait for it to tell you it's ready?
No, 24th of June.
Okay.
Stephen, when would you put yours in now? You don't bother with the kind of March, or did you used to? If I remember.
I have done it in the past, but the season was never long enough, I felt, to get a decent sized bulb. So I've always done the elephant garlic in now October. My normal garlic I used to do in February in modules in the Polytunnel, and then I'd plant them out in March, beginning of April. But they never really got to it. They were okay, but they were just never of a decent size. Mm-hmm. So now I've changed over, and they all go in the autumn now, all in October.
Right. Stephen, while you're there, I'm just going to jump because Phil Hurst is asking a question. What's the best way to site a polytunnel, east to west or north to south?
east to west.
I know. I was going to, definitely, because then you just get the full sun, the full day, right across.
The sun rises over the top, and then it sets at the far end of the tunnel, and it rises at the other end of the tunnel. It's just brilliant. And then you've got one side of your polytunnel for your tall plants, like your tomatoes and cucumbers.
Anything else? Could you give any hints to fill?
No, that's enough, I think, isn't it? That answer this question.
Let's have a look then. Let's see what else we got. Oh, Jess, I've just noticed there's a question for you, Jess, if you don't mind. Gardens in the woods. Jessie, do you know how I prune a very old and unkempt apple tree? No one has taken care of this tree since the late 70s and early 80s. Wow.
That'll be congested.
Yeah, that's... I mean, I guess it's a huge one.
I was going to. I'm guessing just because we've got some in the allotments where I kind of go, Jess. There's the big trees. Can you just cut all that right back to, like, say, a few branches and the trunk, or will that kill it off?
I mean, obviously, it depends how bad it is. There's an apple tree about 5 allotments away from me. That was absolutely vast, and it took up, like, basically it shaded out half of one of the big allotments up there, and a new guy took it on and just got some people in, and they basically cut it down to, like, its trunk. It was like pollarded, its trunk, and then everything was cut down at the top, and there was a huge hoo-ha about it. This was about 6 or 7 years ago, and last year it produced fantastic apples, and it's back to being quite a productive tree, where really most people were sort of saying there was 2 camps. It was either like, leave it as it is, it's a beautiful tree, or cut it down entirely because it's taking up too much space.
Right.
And it just kind of went, well, I'm doing it my way, and it actually ended up working out brilliantly. So it depends how bad it is, really.
So was that tree spoiling his allotment plot? Is that what? Is that why?
Was about 2/3 the way up his, so it shaded out basically a half of his allotment, but also all the other ones that joined on that end. I mean, this tree was vast, not particularly tall, but it was, when they just spread, it was a huge big. But yeah, he actually has come back brilliantly. It's a beautiful tree now.
Steve, anything on apples? Are you a fruit and apple guy? Would you know what to do with it?
A lot of apple trees, actually. There's a couple of rules when you're pruning out an apple tree. First off, cut out all dead, diseased, or dying branches. Cut all those out first. And then you've got to shape it after that. And what you want really is a goblet shape. So you want your branches around the periphery and a hollow centre in the tree if you can. So you're going to have to get in amongst the tree and cut those out. And that allows the better airflow. And that's basically it, really. And then prune down to length. Apples always come back. They're very good. And I'll give you a good tip of a really good apple guy I've seen on YouTube. His name is Stephen Hayes. If you search for him, he's got some fantastic videos about, and especially about restoring some old apple trees that he's been asked to do. And when you see how brutal he's been with an apple tree, several apple trees, you'll never worry about pruning ever again.
Mm-hmm. So
he's brutal, but they come back and fruit, and he goes back and looks at them.
So I think you answered my question there, because there's a few people mentioned that where you do this kind of hollow in the centre.
Yeah.
That's purely for the air to get through, is it?
Yeah, just better airflow, yeah, so you don't get things like mildew and all them other kinds of associated diseases that I take no notice of completely. Just ignore it, or just do the pruning and everything will work. So
Right. Audrey,
Stephen Hayes.
Stephen Hayes, I'll have a look as well. Audrey, what about you? Do you fruit trees? Is that something that's into your realm?
Nope. We don't have room.
Oh, right. Bloody garden's massive. Give up a bed.
I have this huge magnolia tree in the middle of the backyard, so there's really not a lot of room for any other trees.
Right.
So we'll see. It took a bad hit with the last windstorm, so maybe there's hope.
How old is that tree, Audrey?
I don't know. It was here when we bought this home.
Right.
So it's looking like that's an older tree. So
Right.
Yeah.
Let me have a little look, see if there's anything there.
JB's popped the channel up. There you go.
There you go. Right. I'll go Stephen again, if just for the time being there, because I've just lightly gardening at home, Stephen. I've inherited some shared ancient blackcurrant bushes on the next plot on my allotment. Not having grown them before, when and how do I prune these ones then?
Well, again, you check into these things. It's not always the case, but for most fruit, you generally prune them after you've harvested the fruit off them. I mean, that doesn't apply to things like plum trees, but as a general rule, after things are fruited, that's when it's best to prune them. And it's the same with blackcurrants. Just don't go mad on them. Just don't go ballistic and cut them right down to the ground. Cut 2/3 off, leave 1/3, and then next year you can always trim a bit more off.
Is the same rule apply, Steve, like with the hollow middle as well, or because I know that happens.
Yes.
You can do that for like gooseberry bushes. You do that for
for all those fruiting bushes and trees. Yeah, the more airflow you've got in there, I think I saw Mark's allotment plot right there. You've got to leave enough room for a bird to fly through it. That's the old adage.
That's granddad's rules, is it?
Oh, it's not mine. I mean, I've heard that before, but it's Mark who put that up there. So
Right.
It's probably Mark's granddad.
Jess, have you got any blackcurrants? Are you into the blackcurrants or not? Or
yeah, I like blackcurrants and red currants. Both of them I really like. And you're supposed to prune them opposite, aren't you? I'm trying to remember what the rule is, but the red currants you prune after fruiting, and the black currants have a different rule. And I'm trying to remember what it is.
Right.
The shape's the same. But I used to have both in the fruit cage, and when we ripped the fruit cage out, the red currant survived, the black currant didn't. And I've only just put a new black currant in, so it's been about 5 years since I've had to sit down and prune one. I'm sure it had a different rule to red currants.
Right. And did you get a good because I had it. I mean, I didn't give it much chance, I'll be honest. Do you get a good harvest from your blackcurrants?
Yeah, we used to. The shrub that we had was about 15 years old, and it was brilliant.
Right.
But it just it didn't cope with being moved, which is understandable. But
how tall did it grow, Jess?
It wasn't huge, actually.
Right.
It was about maybe 3 foot, but it was about 4 wide. It had been done really nicely. It did have. I mean, a bird could fly through it. Like it was. But yeah, it was. I know I pruned it a different time of year than I pruned the red currant.
Right. Are you all right there, big fella? Are you fidgeting again, aren't you?
Yeah, of course. Can't help it.
Well, I'll tell you what I've got when we're talking about fruit there. I'll just mention, let's have a look where it is. Oh, who was asking it now? There was a question from last week. I think I should have kept the name there. What soil type do we need for raspberries? Now, I know I've got raspberries. Now, I've just been normal kind of soil and then cutting them back and kind of mulching and everything like that. I guess that's what it is. There's no special soil for raspberries.
There probably is, not that I know, but I mean, my experience with raspberries is they'll grow through tarmac if you let them. I mean, they'll grow anywhere, and it's stopping them growing. That's a problem because, as you know, they'll come out from the roots and they'll come up in between your paths or your next bed. So no, I don't think there's a special soil.
Have you got raspberries, Steve? Have you?
I ripped all mine out a couple of years ago. Can't remember why now. There would be an invalid reason, but I had a load of those Autumn Bliss, which are the golden autumn raspberries. I don't think they were doing really very well where they are because I've got a neighbour's hedge literally about 6 foot behind it, and that neighbour had let them get too big, these trees. Some of them are like 60 foot tall, and I don't think they did very well because of the roots coming under my plot, but we're just in the process of getting rid of them. They've all been topped, and hopefully this next year we can pull them out completely because it's no good.
Audrey, I don't know, do you do fruit of any sort or?
I'm establishing some blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, and strawberries.
Right.
That's what I'm working on right now.
Is this a new adventure in the garden, the fruit side for you, or is it something that you have, done in the past?
It's new in this garden. It's not new. Like, I always had fruit in the garden, but we're still establishing this property. So, yeah,
Right.
it'll be great. A couple years. I want to do a fig tree or two if I can get one to live in my climate.
Yes. Well, didn't you mention just not, was it a couple of days ago that you're starting now, the temperatures are now starting to go down?
We've got UK weather right now.
Yeah.
And we were hot as heck 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
And now it's like, you need a turtleneck and a sweater, and
welcome to the club.
We got very close to our first frost, which was very early for us.
Wow.
So this is really all going to be about getting some stuff out.
So have you still got stuff in, Audrey, that could be hit by a frost?
All my peppers are still in. I rolled the dice with them the other night. I thought, you know what? Let's see what happens. They seem to be okay. But I believe this week we're going to have 2 nights that are going to be below freezing. And pepper plants they won't tolerate that. So
I know your pepper plants won't tolerate it, but will it damage the actual fruit as well?
I really don't know because I've never left them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd risk it because I have a lot of peppers that are ready to turn. And I think if I bring them in, they will turn to the right color.
Jess, is that something, Jess, that you've kind of noticed or have left, like peppers in the frost's got them? Have you ever lost peppers that way, or?
I mean, we don't get frost very often, but I mean, the closest I can come to really is if you leave a pepper in the fridge too close to the back and it gets too cold, it just turns to mush instantly. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's going to be exactly the same thing if it gets too cold out in the garden.
So your climate, although we're the same country, you don't get that many frosts, do you not?
No,
Man,
we got frost last year. Year before, we didn't get any frost. There was no ground frost, nothing the whole year.
So there's no justice in this world, is there? There's no justice in this world. The only frostage you get is at the back of a fridge. Come on.
We're up against the wall here. We've got the wall. But I wonder, Steve, I know we're kind of joking on there, but it's a good point. But if you haven't got a frost, that means you might. Is this just a myth, where you need a good frost to kind of kill all the germs and all the bugs and things like that for the next season?
It certainly kills things like slugs off. I mean, if you've had a really cold winter, you'll notice it next spring, and there's still slugs around. Some will survive, but there's just not as many. And once they start to breed again, but if you have a mild winter, you certainly notice that in spring because they're everywhere and all your seedlings will get hit. And as gardeners, we'll have a bad spring.
Have you got any thoughts on that then, Jess? Because he makes a good point. I never even thought that. Do you?
The idea of a time of year when you don't have slugs is quite thrilling. It's just constant. They're just always there, always.
Is that? Would you say that's your main pest down there, slugs, or is it just a constant every month or something else?
I mean, we got a lot of pests and things, and I think probably part of the reason is that it just doesn't get cold enough to kill anything off. But the one that I struggle with most is black fly. I have a terrible, terrible time with black fly, and last year there wasn't any let up. We had black fly for the whole 12 months, just on everything.
Right. And what does it, Jess? What does it kind of go for? Just for people to kind of look out for. Does it aim for something specific, or is it just covers everything?
Well, it's supposed to be. So there's you often get told to make a garlic spray for black fly. You put garlic and water and a bit of oil and tiny bit of soap liquid in a blender and strain it and then spray that on. But I get black fly on the garlic, so it's never actually worked for me. They're not bothered about garlic. The garlic chives this year they always go for like everywhere. They go for the very, very tips of the plants. And if the plants are quite well established, you don't really have that much of a problem with them. We just leave them there. But if they're constantly taking the sap out of, the new growth, and it gets warm, then it can really just mess everything up. When it's on the bigger plants and it's a bit lower down, I just don't really bother about it. But it's a pain when it's on the tips.
So are we when you say plants, are we talking about anything? Like, say, turnips to garlic to onions to anything?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to think of something that doesn't get black fly.
No, because that's I think
they have things that they prefer. Like they will go for bean tops first.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's their absolute favourite.
See, we get the odd little breakout, Jess, but nothing where it's like the number one. You know what I mean? The number one. I think for us, probably the number one is slugs and snails, that kind of thing. I don't know. Steve, what about you? What's your number one enemy, or is it just a constant of different varieties?
Well, I've got all the familiar pests, the same as everyone. Pigeons and even rabbits get into my plot occasionally. Not very often, but they do. But slugs, they're probably the worst. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it's weird here what Jess was saying there, because I've never seen black fly on anything except for beans. And I did read somewhere a couple of years ago that black flies are prevalent on allotment sites. They tend to be more prevalent on bigger allotment sites, and where people are basically growing a lot of beans and they're growing them out of season. So they may grow runner beans through the normal summer season and then later on put a crop of French beans in for a late crop. And Jess could probably get away with that in her climate, probably all the way up till Christmas. Mm-hmm. And then nowadays, of course, field beans are being used as a green manure, so that feeds there all year. But by the sounds of it, they're just attacking any green growth that's fresh, which is even worse.
We have, I think, also part of the problem is, that they, the ants really farm them. They sort of encourage them. Yes. We have a huge, they don't cause a problem to the plants directly, but we have a huge ant population because we're basically just on sand and they love it. Right. And so we just have ants just constantly all year round. And I think they don't, but it's interesting to think that maybe the fact that we are growing beans all year round, which we are, I grow a lot of field beans. Maybe that's part of the issue. But you can watch the ants, literally, your nice new beans you plant out. You just watch an ant walking up to it like that, holding a black fly, and then he just puts it on nice new beans, and that's it. It's like,
Can you? I don't know if
you've got to get out more. Really, if you're sat there watching an ant, you need to get out more. Sorry.
That's fab. That.
That's a valid point.
Get to that museum.
Audrey, what about you for pests then? I'm sure we've talked about this before. What's your biggest pest?
I think my biggest pest is squirrels.
Ah, that's right.
Or white cabbage butterflies. Mm-hmm. I would love them to go live somewhere else. So those are my two worst. Those are my two worst.
And
sure.
What do the squirrels do, Audrey? What are the squirrels like? The really mean ones, or?
They'll climb up anything. They like to take, just one bite out of a squash and then go over to a melon and take one bite out. So that's why I put all of my melons and squash in netted bags, because they don't like to have to do that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like putting one of those clubs on your car to detract it being stolen. You're just slowing it down.
Yeah.
Make it easier for them to steal another car. That's really.
I think that's what you mentioned there, though. It's that, if they would just maybe have the one melon and then leave everything else.
And eat the whole darn thing.
Yeah.
I should show you pictures from several years ago before I started putting my stuff in bags. and it is just they demolish 75% of what I was growing. They
Gosh.
just know, and I'm not eating. I'm sorry, I'm not going to eat something that some rabid squirrel has been on, right?
There's hatred there, Audrey. There's
Oh,
hatred.
oh, like I have no time for those.
Right, Matthew Matthew, I'll just pop you on there. Matthew's asking if you only had one 4-foot by 8-foot veg bed, what would you grow in it? Jess, if you only had one bed, what would you do? What would you
Vertical. Grow up.
Now there's it. Oh, you could. It's almost like the being clever would be question, but yes, you could. You could just have everything growing up, couldn't you?
Yeah, because you're gonna do beans, just do high growing beans. You've got.
Well, I was going to say like square foot gardening, so you could have different veg in every foot of a garden. So, but vertical garden as well. Stephen, what about you? What would you do if you just had one particular, or you only allowed one bed?
God. Well, I do exactly what you said. That was my immediate response is square foot gardening and quick repeat crops to keep more and more stuff going, and then into sowing and into cropping within there. So it'd be incredibly intensive, but it'd be amazed. You could get so much out of that. It's
so were you saying there into plant within the square foot?
Yes.
Oh, that is intensive gardening, that lad.
Yeah, it is. But you've got you might have something like 2 or 3 cabbages in your little square foot, but you could sow spring onions in the middle of it and then some radish at the front, but all in that same square foot. So when the cabbages come out, there's a crop ready, and then you could be thinking about either sowing your next one directly into the soil or growing in modules to plant your next plant. So just keeping it going, keeping it working.
It seemed like a couple of years ago on YouTube, there was this trend of like square foot gardening. It was you would see all the folks doing the videos. Yeah. Have you ever done anything like that, Steve? Or is that, you don't really need do you?
No, not here. But before I had the allotments, I did it up here at home. Just go out and sow a little line and stuff. It might have been between a couple of roses, but I just had loads of food coming out the garden. Just mixed the veg in with the flowers out in the garden, and that worked. Or in a pot, just sow some lettuce seed. Just keep going and just keep throwing seeds at soil and let them get on with it.
Do you think sometimes we're a little bit too precious with our gardening, where you could cram way more in? Do you know what I mean? Or is it best to the more space, the better the plant?
Sometimes we are. Things like with Brussels sprouts, I've never seen anybody grow at the distances that I saw as a lad. And I've never seen anybody grow like that. But you get so much better Brussels sprouts, and that's a sort of a 3-foot spacing between plants. If you grow at that spacing, you get fantastic Brussels sprouts. But I see people watching on YouTube or down at the allotments, and they're putting plants in every 12 inches, and then they wonder why they get small sprouts or none at all.
So do you still, with Brussels sprouts, good 3-foot spacing, is it?
I did last year. This year I didn't. I've gone about 2 foot this year because I had an X number of plants and I wanted to get them in. Got them all in, and then the cabbage whites got them. They're still growing. They've come back and I'm getting sprouts come on them, so I'll be all right.
Well, that's all right. That's all that matters. Audrey, what about you then with planting space-wise?
Plant garlic. No. I first need to commend Jesse for that. Was really kind of like a Kirk Kobayashi Maru answer. Like you thought way outside the box, came up with some other way to look at it. So sorry, that was the Star Trek.
Yes, I got it all. I got that. I got
that. I would grow. I do grow intensively my lettuces. I would do some things up a trellis as well. Like I'd probably throw a few squash in there because I feel like you'd get a little more bang for your buck there. I would be devastated if all I had was a 4x8 bed.
Oh, I know. That's the kind of thing, Audrey. It's like it's scary to kind of just think that's it. That's all we've got. It's
gosh, that would be so hard. I have to rethink my whole philosophy on gardening. Because I'm all about varieties and trying something new.
I guess though, I mean, we kind of take it for granted. We've all got, like kind of a nice size allotment. There is some people that haven't got, have got or just want that size. So it's nice to kind of, Jess, I thought it was because I never thought of that. Do you know what I mean? Well, I've got that size bed, but go straight up. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, because then you could just have so much, even way more than the square foot.
On a lot of roof gardens where you don't have much. Like you've got nothing really other than what you can carry up the stairs, and you can just get so much more by growing things upwards than
Well, Jessie, I forgot, I should have done that question there. Thank you very much. You're allowed to take a little sip of your lager. There we go. Thank you very much. Ciao. So let's have a look. That was a great question, to be honest. There, Stephen is asking. Onions from seeds tend not to bolt as quick. That's what I found. Also, Stephen's actually asking, must be telling a question. So, onions, Stephen, because we are going to have hopefully a special roundabout the Boxing Day. I don't know if I'll be kind of to sow onions, any type of onions on Boxing Day. This is what your granddad did. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, what he did, and I had my own little wooden step so that I could stand on it and see on the bench and see what he was doing, which is quite sweet, really. But yeah, I've done that from a very young age. Boxing Day is the traditional day for sowing onions.
So just onions, or because I was going to ask you this as well, Steve. You know how, and I give actually some of them banana shallots to a neighbour, and they must have been the wrong seed because they look like just old now. The ones I grew, the banana shallots.
Yeah.
They just look like worn out spring onions. So I'm sure they were like the wrong seed. But getting back, would you just sow onions, red and white onions on Boxing Day, or can you sow shallots, banana shallots? Can you do everything on that one day?
Well, I mean, these days, all the sort of borderlines of sowing dates seem to be stretched massively, and people take it upon themselves to do what they want to do, which is fine. But traditionally, Boxing Day was always the sowing day for onions. Now, with my Zebrun shallots, I generally don't sow them until about late February, early part of March, and at the same time I do my leeks. Then I find if I go any earlier with leeks, then they'll run to seed in the autumn, and I really want my leeks to stand all winter and through to the hungry gap next year. If you sow them too early, they'll run to seed, get the hard core through the middle, and then they don't seem to last very well once you've harvested them. Mm-hmm. So if you harvest half a dozen for a week, by day 3 they're sort of gone over, they start drying out. Not very nice to eat.
I think probably, Steve, that you might have hit a nail there with me on the head. I think I might have sown mine because I'm going to say a quarter of them have ran to seed, and it was only, and I'm thinking, I wonder if I did. Do you know what I mean? We got carried away, Stephen, with all the...
That's it. That's exactly what happened. People get so excited. The first hint of a slightly warmer day, and they think, spring is here. Spring is here, and got to do everything today and get it started. And I see it so often. I see people planting out tomatoes, and, they're looking at their phone, and there's a frost predicted on that, and thinking, well, why are you doing it? Just hold back, wait, relax, and be patient.
Jessie, are you a patient gardener or not a patient gardener?
I think between Mum and I, she's incredibly impatient about some things. And my reaction to that is to be like, whoa, and then it's like vice versa. So when we see the other person kind of getting a bit overexcited, we do like try and step in. But it's an intervention sort of gardening rather than...
And do you sometimes kind of get a bit not saying misled, but like, you watch a couple of YouTube videos and you think, God, I should have gotten the garlic in there now, or do you never kind of suffer from that, like anxiety of like, oh.
I'm quite keen. If I see somebody doing something once, I'm happy to try it once. But it's a bit like the cucumber, the Bob Flowerdew cucumbers that I did this year. He was on Gardener's Question Time, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to sow my cucumbers in January. And everyone on the panel was like, what? Up in arms. And I did it. I sowed Socrates, and they started producing their cucumbers in March, and they're still producing cucumbers now. And
right.
Brilliant. And I will be doing that again. And when I heard it, I was like, what the hell are you talking about, Bob? And I gave it a go, and it actually works. So sometimes it is worth, having a go.
So just be kind enough just to, because I like to be jumping in early, kind enough just to talk us through what Bob, so did you have lights and heat all the way through for you?
No, not at all. They're just, so we've got a conservatory at the back of the house, but it's not heated.
Right.
And where the roof joins the top of the wall, there's a gap like that to stop condensation. So it's not a warm, like greenhouse, like a heated type thing. Mm-hmm. And I started them off inside. So like on shelves in the sitting room, like, really early seedlings like you would. Just planted them out. It must have been about February. I planted them into bigger pots, kept them in the sitting room just a bit longer. And they were huge. By the time March came along, they were like 4 foot tall. And I had all these canes crammed in the pots. And they were producing by March. And I was just absolutely astounded. It's absolutely brilliant. I don't know if I would try it with long cucumbers, but Socrates is like...
Right, the little 6-inch ones.
Yeah, it's not one of those tiny little jobbies, but it's a good size.
So, when did you move your pots outside? How long did you have your pots inside for?
And
did you then take them out of the pot and bury them in the soil?
We picked the first cucumber in the 3rd week of March. And they hadn't started producing any fruit before we put them in the conservatory, so we must have put them in there.
Right.
Like in March.
So they stayed in the conservatory. You didn't kind of take them out.
They never went out. No,
right,
I just left them sat in there for the whole of the summer.
And what about feed? Have you been feeding them?
Yeah, I just seaweed feeded them. Really, I had a bit of comfrey, like alternated between seaweed and comfrey, and they've been brilliant.
And what size? I'm dead interested. What size pots? I'm going to just cut this little bit out and keep it, and then rewash it because I sowed mine pretty early, and I'm sure I got a few folks saying, "Oh, do you know what I mean?" But a bit earlier, but I didn't kind of keep them in the house. It was all in the hut.
I'll tell you what, we got to bear in mind is Jess's climate as well.
I know.
So I mean, did you say there was an air gap at the top like that, at the top of the walls? So that's straight out to the outside.
Straight out to the garden.
I'm just wondering if there's an element of when the plant is young and vigorous and starting to grow away, whether because that's used to that weather outside already, that it does so well because it's getting used to that environment while it's such a young and vigorous plant. There might be an element of that in it as well.
Yeah, it's possible. I know the ones that just by chance, the ones that I ended up sowing, like at the time I normally would, so much later, maybe April sort of time, that would normally go into the greenhouse, suffered so badly in the heat. I never got anything. I mean, I got some from them, but it wasn't anything like I would have expected to. So the ones that were at home, it's just been brilliant.
Socrates, is that? There we go.
Welcome to the Potty Mouth Cucumber Show.
Yeah. Well, Audrey, I mean, you're talking about kind of doing a lot now. You're going to start doing your sowing now indoors, and you're growing veg now because of your winter indoors. What about is cucumbers something you would think about, or?
I never have, but after this discussion,
I know.
I just might give it a shot. Because there's nothing like a fresh cucumber. So, I just might try that.
And especially like what Jess was saying there, like that early. Do you know what I mean? And
a cucumber in March is a thing of great beauty.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So, I'm just looking, I've got my pen. When did you say you sowed them, Jess? Right, now, stop, Stephen. Now, I'm just, you know what I mean? Everyone's learning. When did you sow them, Jess?
I'd have to look back, but I would say it was in that second wave. So when I sowed my tomatoes, so it was probably the last week of January.
Right.
Ish, I would think.
So
but I will double check that.
Am I getting my years wrong, though, Jess? It was this year that you had your tomato trouble, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the cucumbers didn't suffer from that? Wow.
Oh.
And they were in the same room.
Uh-huh.
But they weren't. You see this, when we had this discussion before and you were saying that it could have been something that was in the actual tap water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cucumbers had been watered only with the watering cans that I had stood outside that already had the comfrey feed mixed in them. So which is what made me think that maybe you were right. It was actually something in the tap water, because they were absolutely fine, no problem. So it couldn't have been something environmental, like in the air, or a virus or something, because they weren't affected.
Could be.
Gosh.
Stephen, is this because Stephen gets excited when something new comes along? So would you be interested to try and grow cucumbers in February?
Well, I don't like growing plants that are going to die. Let's put it that way.
But would you keep it in? Would you keep it in your greenhouse? Because you've got a greenhouse and you can kind of mother it in there, couldn't you?
I mean, I might try it next year, but I really wouldn't hold out much hope of it surviving. Not with the temperatures we get here, and not at that early point in the year. If I had a climate like Jess's, gosh, yeah, go for it. And there'd be many other things. It'd be wonderful fun, because there'd be many other things you could do as well.
Well, I'm just going to let people know. Like Steve, if you don't know, is kind of right inland, and I'm actually on the coast, so we get like a little milder climate. But I would have thought, Jess, you must be inland as well, so I would have thought you would even get. But obviously down south, you obviously don't get that many frosts then. But the likes
we're right on the south side of Richmond Hill, so it's just hot sand, basically. We don't really get that much of a frost.
Right.
I mean, some years we do. It's not like it never happens, but the last couple of years we've had nothing. I've just noticed in the comments, I think it was Anne just said that she tried the cucumber experiment as well, but she's just gone over the top of the chat and I don't have the scrolly. I was just wondering where she was based.
So, I'm not right. Well, Anne, if you pop it back in again, so we can get
Anne Clark.
And get so everyone's going to be doing the Bob Flowerdew. I can see Audrey there with tears in her eyes, this guy, because the frost's going to come to Audrey, and it's just going to be brutal, Audrey, isn't it?
Well, I'm thinking I need to start a cucumber in the house right now.
Well, when you think, you know what I mean. If you're going to be doing other with lights,
right? But I also think maybe a bush cucumber, so it's a little more controllable.
Mm-hmm. You know what, Audrey, when you mentioned as well, and it worked a treat for me. When you were saying if you want to be a kind of cheat and use juice from a gherkin, like a jar of gherkins, I did that, and it honestly, it worked a treat. It was just exactly like the bought one.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really,
it's a very easy way to get a pickle. Yes.
Jess, I forgot to tell you, don't forget we need a tip off you as well, but not just yet, but I forgot to mention, don't forget that tip. Yes, tip of the week. Actually, sow your cucumbers in February.
January.
Right.
It's in Worcestershire.
What?
Right,
Worcestershire, right.
Worcestershire. Oh.
Right. You look at this. Sheila's saying there. Sheila Leet is saying, Jesse, can you give Tony some DIY tips on how to do them without throwing a hissy fit? And you're so complete and calm. Also, Jess, are you a calm DIYer? Does things work well for you, or do you not show them like the bits where it goes wrong and your mother chuckering away to yourself?
It doesn't really go that wrong. It's normally all right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh no, God, my DIY skills are, it's kind of, if it doesn't go right the first time, then I can just feel it welling up, and do you know what I mean? It's just like, and then like DIY in general, to be honest, like house DIY, bloody hell, it's just don't even go there. That's how I got on my question. Stephen, plans for 2023. What's your plans for next year? Some dreams and aspirations.
I want to develop that little area in front of the tunnel at the back because that's really where I want eventually to be putting a stove and a bit of a barbecue area. So I want to finalise that area. Well, I want to do cooking on the block, go down and cook my lunch.
Right.
That's the idea. So I want some sort of a cooking, grilling area, but probably with a rocket stove oven. So that sort of thing.
So is this the area where it's kind of, you've got like a bit of a ramp going down there now from out of one polytunnel? There's a ramp or something. Is that where?
Yeah.
Right.
It's where I've got that big compost, the hot composter that I keep showing you every 2 or 3 days.
I keep getting the video how good it's going.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Jess, any aspirations and dreams for next year?
Tomatoes.
Oh yeah, well, I'll send you some. I'll buy some from Asda if I can send some over. Right, because
so I was back on the old spreadsheet this morning, just like looking at all the varieties that I was growing last year and which ones I'm actually going to try. And I just remember I got like this welling up, the remembering of the excitement of all these tomatoes that I sowed, and then knowing what happened to them, I was just like, oh.
So as it happens, Jess, that's one of my questions there. Have you getting rid of now, is all your tomato plants that you eventually got, is them all finished? Are they out of the polytunnel?
They're still going. I mean, I've still got tomatoes to pick, so I'll pick all of them. But the peppers, I mean, it just hasn't been a year for all that stuff that I had started really early. This wasn't a year for it. So,
because it's funny because I was going down the lines, but again, we've just found out you don't get that many frosts, because I've just cleared the last of my tomatoes there now on the back of I'm frightened there'll be a hard frost sometimes, and I don't want to kind of get anything spoiled. But I guess with you, you're on easy street for that kind of thing.
Well, my door on my polytunnel is just shot to pieces, so there doesn't have a door or window, so it's just open. It's basically they're just in a little plastic flappy tent at the moment, rather than a polytunnel. So if we do get a bit of cold, they are gonna suffer. But everything in there's fine. The only problem I've had is a lot of watering issues this year. So something I'm going to try and do is I've got a water butt outside the polytunnel. I'm just going to raise it up a bit and try and get a leaky hose running into the bed in the polytunnel, because I struggled to keep it adequately watered this year, even though it was really hot. I just, when it gets to that point where you're watering and it just doesn't actually absorb into the.
Yes, Def got it just like floats on the top and just.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a watering system on your roof where it buried in?
That was an improvised tank.
Improvised watering, yeah. That was quite fantastic. That was.
There's a parsley plant right underneath where I stabbed the hole in the roof, and it is the lushest looking parsley plant.
There you go. Brilliant.
Audrey, any dreams and aspirations for next year? Any excitement coming your way?
Yeah, I'm going to graft my indeterminate tomatoes. Ooh. So I want to see if doing that will give me a better harvest and healthier looking plants. I want to grow artichokes, and I want to get better at intentionally not rotating, like planting in intervals.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that for a minute, and then problem is I start too many seeds, and then I feel bad throwing any of them out.
Audrey, that's exactly. Oh man, honestly, I think that's I think that's any gardener kind of. You know what I mean? You've got.
I also want to sow enough that if I have some problems with germination, I still have the amount of plants I want.
Mm-hmm.
But then I end up with, and then I start planting them all, and it does not leave a lot of room to do any interval planting. So I somehow want to get better at that.
Audrey, are we sometimes a little bit precious with like crop rotation, or are you a little bit precious? Because I've just of late, and I go down the excuse me, that's me, the Pepsi Max going around there. Like watching the Charlie Dowden like videos, and he's started now not to kind of bother crop rotation. Do you know what I mean? Like just keep on feeding your soil, and you're good to go. Is that something you think about, or are you quite precious about?
No, I don't crop rotate at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
No, that's good. It's nice to know them because I've seen your veg. You know what I mean? So crop rotation.
Yeah, I don't do it, but I try to, add lime when I'm planting brassicas in a place. But I tend to, like this year, I really want to have like a brassica cage that is permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can just maybe hinge to open, because this last year, all those white butterflies just made me nuts. So I'd like to have something more permanently built. So that would mean I'm not rotating that a lot. So, and I'd be fine with that.
Jess, what about you then? Are you a bit precious with crop rotation, or is it something you're kind of discovering we don't really need to bother with?
My mum and dad used to crop rotate a lot. Like it was religious. It would be this 3 beds, then this 3 beds, and this 3 beds. But I remember all the old boys on the plot, they always used to have permanent runner bean stands. They would hammer them in the ground with old scaffold poles or whatever, and they would be there for 20 years. So they got perfectly good runner beans. The only thing that we do rotate, and it's more out of convenience, is the brassicas, because we plant field beans in them over the winter. Mm-hmm. Just so we've got enough black fly when they do arrive.
just so the black fly is ready for the spring.
Yeah, we don't want them hungry, do we? So we put the field beans into like 3 beds that we're going to plant the brassicas in, and we can't do them in the same bed that the brassicas are already in from the winter. So they do tend to shift each year, but it's not kind of an intentional plan.
Right. Stephen, what about you, sir?
I used to crop rotate religiously with all the major ones. It's like Jess was saying there, with your runner beans, you dig them out every year, empty your compost heap into the bottom of the trench, then your runner beans were ready for next year. And things like sweet corn, they don't need to rotate. I don't do it anymore, but I try not to follow one crop with the same variety of another. So I'll try not to follow a brassica with a brassica and an allium with an allium, if you catch my drift.
Is that just though, is that because you've always done it that way? Because like I say, I've watched Charlie Dowden and he's quite blatantly doing it, as a test as well.
He's feeding quite heavily with the compost. Mm-hmm. I mean, where he puts an inch of compost on every year, I'm doing it every 2 years. So I do it more from a feeding standpoint, and I know roughly what a plant's requirements are from the soil, and roughly what it's going to take from that soil. And then next year I'll put a plant in there that's going to have different requirements and will have enough feed left in that soil. Yeah. Then I'll feed the bed again and then start it over. So we do it more from that standpoint. And of course, I don't want a build-up of pests or diseases either. So
I think that's it. I think all that's left now is tips of the week. Audrey, I'm going to jump to you straight away.
Yes, poor lads.
Tip of the week.
My tip of the week is, if you're like me and do not have compost bins, as I'm pulling everything out this year, it's just being cut up and laid on top of my beds. So I'm kind of composting in place this year.
Mm-hmm. And Audrey, will it have broken down enough, do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, because it's under frozen snow for 5 months, 4 months.
And that's
so,
just kind of...
But if it's a big, huge, thick stalk, you cut it up a bit before you put it out there.
Are you not a little bit kind of, because I am, mind you, Audrey, like if I see, not a dirty bed, but a bed that's got old leaves on and stuff, I sometimes want to kind of clean it and get a nice new soil.
Sure, I'd rather have beautifully tidy, but it also adds a lot of good nutrition to the beds. If nothing else, it adds just some more organic materials to the bed, which in some ways can almost be as good. So, yeah. I kind of can get past that.
And has this been something that you've been doing, or is this quite new to you?
No, this is quite new, because I thought, why are we packaging all this up and putting it out in the trash. And of course, we have like a recyclable and greens. We can, recycle greens anyway, they're in brown paper bags, and they make compost out of it. But I thought, why am I just giving that all there? Why don't I just put that on top of my bed? So I'm doing that.
Well,
I'm going to be very committed to that this year.
Thank you. That was a great tip. Thank you. Stephen, tip of the week, sir.
Well, I think that people, as the season goes on now and most of the harvesting's done, a lot of people tend to hibernate now over the winter, go home and do very little in the garden. Stay on your plot, turn your compost heap over and start a new one. And just keep working your compost heap, work some more cardboard or some grass clippings into it. Just keep those compost heaps working for you. And then come spring, you've got loads of fresh compost to start the year with.
I think even, Steve, just what you're saying, beyond your allotment plot, like you say, I'm turning up there now, and there's no one. Do you know what I mean? There's no one. I haven't seen a soul now for at least 2 to 3 weeks. I haven't seen a soul on that you know what I mean? It's just like, there's so much to do. You know what I mean?
And people just pack up for the winter. I mean, if you've got soil beds, you can dig your beds over, and that will help with the drainage over the winter. If you've got new ground that you need dug over, if you just dig it over into clumps now, when the frost comes, the frost will actually break it up for you as well. So you're doing so much good by being there. If you've got no dig beds, keep them weed free or put your next layer of compost on. There's tons of things you can be doing at this time of year. Even cleaning the glass on your greenhouse or the plastic on your polytunnel. So many jobs to do.
And it's so much better than staying and watching telly. Anyway, what do you think of the new Andor Star Wars? Is it good?
The first couple were a bit difficult. The second couple were a little bit easier.
I think it's getting, for me, it's exactly. The first one was a little bit weird, too much backstory, but loving it there now. Anyway, we're in the plot. We're not watching TV.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay,
yeah. Jess.
Get back. Turn your soil over.
Yes. Jess. Tip of the weeks, please.
It's not very relevant, but it's just coming to like my realization this week, actually, just before I went away, was that my coriander, I've always had terrible time growing coriander. And when I have grown it, it's been gnarly and quite unpleasant. You know, and it's just rough and it's not like when you buy it in the shops. Well, I started growing it in the carrot bed, which is completely enclosed by a really tight Enviromesh box and protecting it from like the wind and the rain. And it's just been in a really cushy environment. It is lush as all hell.
Right.
It's beautiful. Just, taking huge clumps and cutting it off. It's been a joy. And now it's even gone to flower, but the stems are so tender still that you just can chop the whole lot together. So I'd say
brilliant.
So do you think that the wind? Do you think the wind in the environment's what's causing that kind of roughness?
Yeah,
then,
because if you're being battered around, you're going to be a more robust plant. You're going to have to put up some sort of a defense against it. Like you couldn't be lovely and lush and soft and be in the wind. And these have just been. They haven't had any of that. They've had all the fresh air and the air movement and everything, but they've just been in a really, really great environment, and it's just been wonderful.
They've just been having a big cuddle, haven't they?
Hey, well, it's been fantastic. Listen, Jess, Steve, Audrey, thank you so much again.
You're welcome, Tony.
The tips have been fantastic as well. Jess, it's been lovely having you, our special guest. Thank you very much. Yes, you can go and finish your other 5.
I'm going to go down.
Yeah, Audrey, it's been lovely having you again. Thank you so much. Stephen, always a pleasure, never a chore.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for doing this again, Tony.
Yes,
much appreciated. Nobody ever says thank you to you.
Oh, it's just nice to talk about gardening. To be honest, I'd like to say there's no one in the allotment to talk about it, so I thought it'd be friends.
No.
Nice. Everyone, thank you so much for turning up again. Don't forget, this show will be a podcast. As soon as I get sorted, I'm going to go and have my tea there now, though. But till next week, look after yourselves, everyone. Take good care.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Jay.